Hi, this is Diane Lovetobake on YouTube. And what we're going to make are actually almond bar cookies. They are relatively very easy to make. If you've checked out my channel, you know, well, I have over 600 videos, but I like recipes that are generally very quick, but you get the results and you like them once you bake them. But this one, well, the most time-consuming part is actually making the baked crust. In other words, the foundation of the almond bar cookie. But if you can get past that, they're well worth making. They really are. So let's get started. What we're going to first do is to make the foundation, or the crust, if we can call it that. We're going to start off with 1 cup of butter. I've had it at room temperature. Cut it up into small pieces because I think it's a lot quicker to cream everything and for the video, and well, it's a win-win. So I'm going to turn my stand mixer. Now you can use a hand mixer for this, but for me this is much quicker and faster for the video. I'm going to warn you about the sound because some people feel it's a bit loud, so warn you about the sound ahead of time, okay? So alright, now once that you've creamed that, you're going to be putting in granulated sugar, and you're going to put 1/2 cup in. And then you're going to just cream them together till they're quite light and fluffy. Now that might take you a minute, it might take you 2 minutes, who knows. But I'm going to move it along a little bit, so I'm going to do it a little bit quick. Okay, and it will look like this. It's quite nice and fluffy. Okay. Now, the next thing you're going to add is 2 cups of all-purpose flour, but do it a little at a time till it becomes almost like a cookie dough, okay? As you can see, I put the rest of the flour in. I just want to get to the bottom here and work those sides a little bit and just beat it just a little bit longer to combine this mixture. Okay. Now the mixture is sticking together. I'll show you, it looks, you know, a bit crumbly. But we want to bring it all together. Mix that from the bottom. Make sure I've got it all out of my bowl. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sort of bring it together into a ball, a cookie dough ball. Now you might not want to do the cookie dough ball. You might want to take it out when it's a little bit more crumblier, that it's in crumbs, but I like to do it this way. Of course, you can do it however you feel is appropriate. All right, so I'm going to push the mixer out of the way. Now you need a jelly roll pan, and you will want to heavily grease it, or, you know, put your, if you want to use parchment paper, I would suggest to grease because you know, when you're cutting the bars, you don't want to, if it does stick to the paper. But again, feel free. So I heavily greased it. And then what I do is I just start putting the dough out on the tray as you see it. Like that. There's really no rhyme or reason. Just, you know, get it on the jelly roll pan. And this is what takes the most time, is just spreading this out as your base. The rest of the cookie, to put it together and everything, is relatively really quick. Okay, so you get the idea. You're going to just start spreading it. Use the palms and your fingers. You want to try to get it as even as possible, but it doesn't have to be perfect. If you find it's a little too thick, again, use the bottom part of your hand, back of your hand there, to spread it out. But you can see how it will come together. And then just keep pushing it with your hand. If you get little shallow areas, you know, just, it's work. It reminds me of almost like working with clay or Play-Doh. When you use Play-Doh as a kid, or maybe your children now or grandchildren. And then just spread it out as you see. And this is the most work that it is. Now, it'll probably look and you'll think, oh my gosh, I don't have enough. She gave me a recipe that's not going to cover and it's not going to turn out, but it really does, because that's what takes the time that I told you way in the beginning, is that pulling and stretching that mixture. Okay, I'm not going to bore you with the rest of the time, but you got to trust me. It does cover. And I just keep pulling it out, and you can see I have a lot of thickness in there, so that still has to be pulled down and then finish this area. Now, once you get that done and you get the base done, and like I said, that's the most time I think that this recipe takes. It really does. You're going to put it in a 350-degree oven, and you're going to bake it anywhere from 12 to 15 minutes. So check your oven, because you don't want to burn it. Now, you're not waiting to turn it a real golden brown or anything like that, because if you do, probably maybe you've overcooked it or overbaked it, I'm sorry, I should say. So start checking it. You want to start checking it at 10 minutes, go ahead. But it should be completed in about 15 minutes at 350 degrees. Now, when it comes out baked, okay, it'll be your foundation, or it'll look like a crust, or just like a big cookie, basically. Well, you're going to take it out of the oven, of course, put it on a cooling rack, and then you're going to combine the topping, for it. So I'm going to need my mixer back, so let's pull that back. I'm going to just walk away from the camera for a moment and get a mixing bowl for this. Okay. And we'll put that into place. Whoops. Now, you can actually use your same beater if you want, rather than to stop and clean it. I just lightly rinse it, but it would be all baked in anyway, so it really wouldn't make a difference if you don't lightly rinse it, that's for sure. All right, so let's make the filling. What you're going to need is brown sugar, and you need 1 pound, and this is 1 pound in this bag. So I'm going to just put the brown sugar in here, okay? Next, you're going to need nuts. Now, I used my own processor, and I had whole almonds, and then I pulsed them till I got to the consistency that I wanted them to be chopped. They can be as thick or thin as a nut, you know, as you want. And if you want to use pecans, it's great for this recipe. Walnuts are fantastic. Any type of nut that you have or that you want to use, I think it works great. And you're going to need 2 cups of that. So then just put that right into your brown sugar. I'm going to give it a stir. You're also going to put a 1/4 cup of flour, all-purpose. And again, another stir. Now you're going to put in 4 eggs, and I've had them at room temperature, and I'm going to just put about 1 in at a time until they're combined. All right, next we're going to need salt. So you're going to put 1 teaspoon of salt. You're going to put a teaspoon of baking powder. And the last thing you're going to put in is a teaspoon of vanilla, and you're just going to stay with it till it's combined. And that shouldn't take you but a minute or so, or 2 minutes. All right, now I'm going to take my paddle out, get the excess off. Set that aside. Now I want to show you what that looks like once it's all combined, and you'll smell that brown sugar and vanilla, and oh, it just smells so good when you're baking this also in the oven. So it's going to look like that. You can see those beautiful almonds. Those chopped almonds. So again, just to review quickly, you know how we're going to make the base and bake it. And then I usually, after it cools on a cooling rack, after a few minutes, I put it on right away. And then you'll actually take this mixture, the topping, and put it all over and very evenly. Use it all up. Then you're going to put that back into the oven, and you're going to bake that still at 350, and it's going to take 15 to 17 minutes. But again, I like to start watching mine around 13 minutes because, as you know, all our ovens set up so differently, and you don't want to you know, over bake them or that they become too dry. Now, in the baking process, and it has happened to me a couple times, not every time, but a couple times, it might actually bubble up on you when you check on it. If it does, just take a toothpick or a cake tester and just lightly put a little hole into it, and the bubble will come down. Now, it might not happen for you, but it does happen to me occasionally, okay? So I'm going to set that aside. I'm going to quickly wash my hands because I was handling raw egg, and then I want to show you and explain just a little bit more on the making this. Now, once it comes out of the oven, you will need a topping for it. You don't have to put a topping on it, but it's going to come out a lot nicer because I'm going to show you in a moment how nicely it does. So I have 2 cups of powdered sugar with a whisk. You can do it with a hand mixer, and then you're going to need butter again, but use just 1/4 of a cup of butter. I've had it at room temperature. You can see it's starting to melt because my kitchen is really warm today. Okay, and then what you're going to do is you're going to keep blending that together, and then you're going to add 3 tablespoons of milk. Okay, now you can make this as thin or as thick as you want it to be, okay? I have found doing the 3 tablespoons of milk really works perfect, okay? So I'm going to quickly pull this together to give you an idea. And then, of course, stay with it till it's all combined and all the lumps and all the bumps are gone on it. Because what I like to do is once it comes out, because remember, we really do a twice bake on this. You'll want to put it on, not when it's real hot, but again, let it sit on a cooling rack for a couple minutes, 2 or 3 minutes, and then put your glaze or your frosting on top of it. This will make for a real beautiful frosting or glaze, if you prefer to call it that. And I hope I went through the measurements correctly. I did it correctly, I'm sorry, but slowly enough, because I'm sorry, but the recipe will not be below the video. I don't do that anymore due to so many people that are taking my videos to other other places and what have you. And you know, I always tell you, if you try this recipe and you like it, leave a comment, because I like to hear from you. But if you are watching me on a different site or where it's been pinned or posted or whatever, I can't answer your question, and it's very frustrating. So please watch my videos solely on YouTube, because that's the only place that I put my videos, on Diane Lovetobake on YouTube. Once again, very velvety, very smooth. This makes a beautiful topping, frosting, glaze, whatever you want to call it. Now, I'm going to show you once it's done. Also, this is an added extra. It's just probably maybe 1/3 of a cup of the almonds that I had. And what I do is, once I take this glaze and I put it all over the cookie, then I like to just, like a garnish, put the almonds on top. Now, you don't have to do that if you don't want. You can just leave it plain and it looks pretty. It's going to taste delicious. You could put colored jimmies on it for certain times of the year. That'll be up to you. But this is how it will bake up. It will be quite even for you if you spend the time to do that. And let's cut into it. Let's see. Now, it really depends on, you know, how large you want to cut these, you know, how big you want them to be, you know. And I like to make these when, you know, I'm having a lot of people over, because I can cut the pieces smaller. The first one is always the hardest to get out. Do you ever notice that? And so I can get more out of the cookie. And this is how they'll come up. Now, what you'll want to do is, once you put your glaze on, and if you put the nuts on top or jimmies or whatever, put it back in your refrigerator to set up. That kind of thing, so that it's a little easier to cut. Mine were just a little bit warm yet. I was moving it along because of the video, but you'll have a nice golden brown on the bottom. You'll have this nice crispy bottom of the cookies, that crust, and then you'll see all the almonds inside. And oh my gosh, it's a great tasting bar cookie. It's great when you're baking, like I said, for large groups of people or church socials, that kind of thing. Cut them whatever size that you prefer and serve them. Great with a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. So give this recipe a try. You've got almond cookie bars. Choose the nut that you like. And if you try this recipe, as I said earlier, and you like it, well, leave a comment, because I'd like to hear from you. And if you're so inclined and you'd like to subscribe, I'd really appreciate it, or ring the bell, or even a like. That would be wonderful. I always want to thank you for taking the time and watching Diane Lovetobake on YouTube. Thanks again, and I'll see you soon.